Hello and welcome to Food Allergy and Your Kiddo. I'm your host, Dr. Alice Hoyt. Today we are talking about Palforzia. Yes, Palforzia. Don't talk much about Palforzia for all the reasons that I'm going to talk about today. But there is some pretty big news with Palforzia. Palforzia, if you're not aware, is the only FDA approved product. It's not really a drug, it's food that is approved for peanut allergy, just peanut allergy. Yes, omalizumab, Xolair is absolutely approved to prevent anaphylaxis in people who have anaphylactic or potentially anaphylactic food allergies. It works, as I've talked about before. Xolair works by basically binding up your allergic antibodies, all your allergic antibodies, and pretty much making it very hard for your allergy cells to become activated because those allergic antibodies aren't hanging out on the allergy cells, aren't really able to activate the allergy cells because they're being gobbled up by the Xolair. So, how does Palforzia work? Palforzia is defatted peanut flour that kiddos, adults could take it too. Take small amounts of, use it for oral immunotherapy. Small amounts of it. That there's dose packs. I'm going to talk about it. But basically, it helps grow tolerance to peanut, so that somebody who takes Palforzia is able to get up to maintenance, which is 300 milligrams of peanut protein, which is about the same as one average peanut. If a kiddo's on maintenance Palforzia, then they're essentially eating a peanut a day. So if they were to accidentally eat peanut or eat a peanut, then we already know they're eating a peanut a day basically, and so it's highly unlikely they would have a severe allergic reaction. Um, so then, why is Palforzia in the news? It's because Palforzia is being discontinued. I'm going to read what they say on their website today. Um, Stallergenes Greer, that's who owns Palforzia, will discontinue the commercialization of Palforzia peanut, Arachis hypogea. It's the fancy scientific word for peanut. And that's why, tangent, that's why if you're looking at peanut component tests like ERA H1, ERA H2, IgE, it's Arachis hypogea, however you want to say it. That's the scientific name for peanuts. ERA H, and then whichever protein it is numbered, usually in the order of discovery. So I'll start over. Stallergenes Greer will discontinue the commercialization of Palforzia allergen powder, DNFP, as of July 31st, 2026. This voluntary discontinuation is not related to product safety, quality, or efficacy. So it's not related to the safety, the quality, or the efficacy of the product. Stallergenes Greer will continue to meet all regulatory obligations throughout the wind down period and will support an orderly transition for patients currently receiving therapy. Stallergenes Greer remains committed to patient safety, regulatory compliance, and supporting healthcare professionals and patients during this transition. If you have any questions, they give you the phone number you can call. And the Palforzia Pathway Patient Hub and Walgreens specialty pharmacies will accept the last new patient starts on January 30th, 2026. After this date, no initial dose escalation cards will be dispensed. No new Palforzia patient prescription enrollment forms submitted to the patient hub via fax directly to Walgreens specialty pharmacies or through the Quick Enroll portal will be processed after December 31st, 2025. That's in the rearview mirror, y'all. January 30th is about to be in the rearview mirror. Actually, it might be at the time this gets published. Patient prescription enrollments currently in process will continue to be triaged to Walgreens specialty pharmacies through January 30th, 2026. After this date, any current enrollments will be canceled and no longer processed. So that sounds kind of sad and scary, right? Like, wait, this is like the only FDA-approved product to use for peanut OIT. What are we going to do? Well, let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to keep doing OIT the way most OIT allergists, many, have been doing it without Palforzia. And what I want to read, doing a lot of reading today. What I want to read is a blog post that I wrote. When did I originally write this? A couple years ago. I'm not going to read it verbatim. You can go to foodallergyandyourkiddo.com, search our very cool kiddo content collection where I've been doing this for many years now. So we have a bunch of content on foodallergyandyourkiddo.com. You can go to the kiddo content collection and type in Palforzia. And this beautiful, in my opinion, product review for Palforzia for peanut allergy will come up. Um, so I have not updated this. This is my top 7 reasons um why back then Palforzia didn't catch on. And so you heard when I was reading from the Palforzia website that the voluntary discontinuation is not related to product safety, quality, or efficacy. So it's not that the product's unsafe, it's safe. It's not that there's a quality problem, and it's not that it's ineffective. So what is it? Well, in a nutshell, no pun intended, it's probably that you can do the same exact thing using peanut butter, which costs significantly less. And spoiler alert, has significantly less regulatory burden, not just for the family, but also for the physician prescribing it. Many allergists, if they have not started doing OIT, if they don't focus in super subspecialized, whatever we want to call it, on food allergy, the concept of starting a service line, meaning starting to do OIT, with Palforzia to me seems very like, whoa, this is a lot, and I'm going to tell you why. Long story short, it just really overcomplicates it. It complicates OIT. But I'm going to give a big shout out to Palforzia because thank you for existing. Um, Depending on where you are in your family's food allergy journey, you might not know sort of the history of doing oral immunotherapy and how up until very recently, for an allergist to do OIT, oral immunotherapy, give somebody their kiddo patients, adult patients, mostly kiddos, small amounts of the allergen increasing over time, teaching the body to tolerate it. That's OIT. Lots of episodes on that. Go to the kiddo content collection, check it out. The concept of doing that outside of a research study was significantly frowned upon by academia, by allergists doing the studies, by um, health healthcare leaders. Academic medicine is not what it used to be. Um, so there was a lot of pushback and a lot of like getting kind of personal with the thought of, oh my gosh, you were doing OIT and you're not doing it in an IRB approved research study. Up until very recently, there has been data for years demonstrating that oral immunotherapy, just like allergy shots for pollen allergies, which we've been doing for decades and decades and decades, that it works. Low and slow, slow and steady, teaching the body to grow tolerance. Whether you're doing that to pollens, whether you're doing that to bee venoms, or whether you're doing it to foods. The concept that low and slow increasing amounts grows tolerance is a well documented one. So it was only until very recently when it wasn't frowned upon to by academicians, also probably by people who are just like well intended and were like kind of afraid of this, right? Had a lot of respect for, oh my gosh, what if we give somebody too much, too fast? You know, what if we take a condition like a peanut allergy, where the completely appropriate one completely appropriate management plan is to just avoid it, right? Just avoid it. Don't eat it. Um, and what if we make a child very sick or actually a child pass away from anaphylaxis from doing oral immunotherapy when you could have just avoided it, right? So I have a lot of respect for Palforzia because once Palforzia came on the market, what it really did is it demonstrated, look, OIT works. OIT works. We can safely desensitize kiddos. We can safely get kids eating at least small amounts of their allergen and not having severe allergic reactions. So 2 years ago, I think, when I wrote this, why didn't Palforzia catch on? I have a list. Number one, allergists have been doing OIT before there was an FDA-approved product, so why change? Yes, very true. So many of the allergists that I learned about OIT from, they'd been doing OIT long before Palforzia came out, using real foods. So the concept of changing what you already see has been working, that's hard. We don't really like to change things. If it's working well, there's not a good reason to try to change it. Why are we going to do that to a patient? Number two, allergists who are not doing OIT, sorry, if you hear me rubbing my hands together, it's because it's cold in my office, because it's cold everywhere right now. Number two, allergists who are not doing OIT prior to Palforzia may not find Palforzia particularly user friendly for themselves or for their patients. So here we go. Palforzia must be refrigerated, and in many cases, patients are shipped their doses from the company. The doses come in capsules that contain specific amounts of peanut powder, and those capsules are opened and mixed into small amounts of applesauce or other food to be ingested patients. Dose changes can be logistically challenging since the company sends the doses, and if the doctor wants to decrease the dose due to an allergic reaction or some other reason, then the family may not actually have that amount, that dose, because they get the doses in the capsules. Um, and so the doctor needs to have a supply of different dose packs in their office, which can be burdensome for the allergists. And then what if your patient lives like 5 hours away from you, right? Like, so it's doable, right? And if there are no other option, then like, hey, I love options. Like it's great to have an option. Um, but when you could just use peanut butter or PB2 powder or peanut puff or some other food that has just straight peanut where you can very clearly calculate the peanut content, then why? Why are you going to overcomplicate it? Number three, the age is approved for Palforzia. Yeah, this is old. 4 to 17 years, exclude babies and most preschoolers. Okay, so it did drop down. It did drop down. Um, but really, when we should start OIT is as soon after the diagnosis is made. That means if a 5-month-old tastes peanut butter, has hives, facial swelling, check labs or check skin testing, it's positive, we need to start immunotherapy immediately, immediately, because that is going to help that child's immune system grow to tolerate the food. The longer they go avoiding a food, we know this, the longer they go avoiding the food, the more that allergy kind of sets in because the less we're doing to intervene to grow tolerance to the food. Number four, Palforzia isn't always covered by insurance. And at that time, it was the case for both private insurance and Medicaid. Um, and this is where it gets really complicated. Number five, OIT doesn't have a clear billing code for doctor's appointments. So doctors do not get paid to prescribe a medication. That's very frowned upon. We don't get paid like, okay, you're going to prescribe this amount of the medicine, you're going to get paid this much. Doctors get paid in most cases by the services they provide. So when you go in to see a patient, or I'm sorry, when you go in to see your allergist, that allergist, if what y'all are doing that day is sitting down talking through your child's case, making management plans, then you'll be billed for an office visit, the doctor's taking time to talk to you, that billing can It is of varying levels from pretty basic to very complex. That's one way to bill an office visit when when patients come in to see us. Another way that doctors bill office visits is by time, the amount of time that they spend with a patient. Um, but there's not a way to bill for OIT. There are ways to bill for allergy shots. There are ways to bill for all of these other procedures. But when a patient comes in to have their oral immunotherapy dose in the office and they sit there for at least 2 hours for the start appointment or 1 hour for updose appointments, there's not a clear CPT code or a way to bill that. And so allergists have been left to figure out the legal, because also when you start getting government insurance involved, you start dealing with legal stuff, and nobody wants any sort of like Medicare, Medicaid fraud situation going on. But dealing with legal, um, how do we bill this? How do we bill this appropriately? Um, and so a lot of times the billing is just billed on an office visit. So whatever an insurance company reimburses the doctor to talk about allergies, that's what they're being reimbursed when they come in to the office to do when the patient comes in the office and take a dose of OIT. Now, a dose of OIT has a risk of anaphylaxis. Anaphylaxis has a risk of death. And so you can see this kind of goes back to one of my other points is taking on a service line like oral immunotherapy, there is a risk to it. And you want to be, as an allergist, you want to be really prepared. If you're going to start a service line, you want to be prepared to make it amazing, right? You don't want to halfway do this stuff, especially when you're dealing with something that can potentially cause anaphylaxis. You have to have all your ducks in a row. You have to have the resource. You have to be able to be on call when patients have questions, like all the things, right? So, not having a clear way to bill for it, which means you're expending resources on something that's incredibly important, incredibly of value, but can also have risk, also requires staff, right? Requires you as the allergist to be on call, to be there, all these things, right? Um, if you can't get paid for that, or it's unclear how you get paid for that, or you don't feel like it is paying for itself, it's really hard to take that on. Number six, OIT is time intensive, whether using a pharma developed product or a pantry item. Yes, absolutely. What did I write here? When you need your child's medicine, you need your child's medicine. Having to wait for a shipment um, from a pharmaceutical company is not attractive, or not from the pharmaceutical company, from the dispensing pharmacy. Um, and it takes time. So number seven, and this is probably one of my favorites, if not the favorite, simple parent preferences. As a parent, if I'm giving something to my child, I would like to be able to taste it. If I have the option of treating my child with a pharmaceutical product or peanut butter that I can go to the store, that I can taste, that I can help normalize for my child, right? So I'm eating it too. They get to take little bits. We increase the amount. Um, that's the way I want to do it. That's what when Palforzia was first coming on the market, I would ask my patients. I was like, "So what do you think about this?" And they would just rather use a product that they're going and they're buying. They know it's coming from their trusted supermarket. Not that the pharmacy can't be trusted, but it's just different when it's a pharmaceutical product compared to peanut butter. So that, in a nutshell, um, is why I suspect, in part, Palforzia hasn't done well. Now, to get Palforzia approved, it required very good studies that were very well done. Um, and all of that costs so much money, right? And getting a drug over the finish line costs more money than I can probably really even understand. Um, And so while it's look, I never like to see an option go away. None of my patients have ever chosen Palforzia when we talk about the other options, but I like options. And it's also it's it's just not good for options to go away. What I wish would have happened is we could have I wish we had a CPT code for it. Though, just because you get a code for something, just because you get a procedure code that you can bill doesn't mean that insurance or whomever is going to, probably or private insurance, I should say, is going to reimburse you what you think you should be reimbursed for that service. But it's really hard to ask doctors to take on this service line that does pose risk, that does require after hours discussion in many cases, if it's going to actively cost their practice money and increase the risks at of kids having reactions, right? So it's very interesting. Um, if you are concerned, if you are on Palforzia, you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? We've been on Palforzia. Your allergist should be able to transition you pretty easily to PB2 powder or peanut butter. How Palforzia works is that it's peanut powder. It's peanut protein in there. That's what's so important about any product you're using for oral immunotherapy is you have to have the allergenic protein in it. Um, so if you're concerned that you won't have anything to transition to, please talk with your allergist about it. There are many options in transitioning if you're somewhere in buildup or if you're on maintenance. Also, depending on your kiddo's age, staying on maintenance or transitioning off of Palforzia and onto peanut butter. I love peanut butter. I think I've talked about peanut butter probably ad nauseum regarding OIT, um, because peanut butter sticks in your mouth. It's tacky. The mouth is where a lot of the magic happens with developing tolerance. And that's what we're really seeing as more good data come out about how sublingual immunotherapy can be so powerful. If you haven't listened to or watched on our YouTube, plug for our YouTube channel, Hoyt Food Allergy. If you haven't listened or watched the episode where I discuss with Edwin Kim his slit study, you should definitely go back and listen to that. All this to say that Palforzia is going away. You have other options. Talk to your allergist, options that are probably going to be better for you. But that all is my 2 cents. I would love to hear your 2 cents. So drop them in the comments. Go to foodallergyandyourkiddo.com. Sign up for my newsletter, Joyful Living. Y'all know I'm all about less stress, more joy. We don't need to sensationalize, fearmonger, anything when it comes to food allergy. Just talk about the facts, right? And opinions, right? So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. God bless you. God bless your family.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, I'm an allergist, but I'm not your allergist. So talk with your allergist about what you learned today. Like, subscribe, share this with your friends, and go to foodallergyandyourkiddo.com where you can join our newsletter. God bless you, and God bless your family.